Have you ever experienced a blackout? Not just the lights going out for a few minutes, but the kind of blackout that makes the air feel heavier, that makes the silence feel alive, and makes you question if you're truly alone. This is not just a story. It's what happened to me 2 years ago. It was the middle of July. The heat was suffocating, even at night. The small town I had just moved into was quiet, almost too quiet. I had taken a small one-bedroom apartment on the edge of town, cheap rent, no noisy neighbors, and a decent view of the street below. That night, I was unpacking the last of my boxes. I remember setting up my books on the shelf when suddenly, everything went dark. The fan stopped. The hum of the refrigerator cut out. The silence that followed felt unnatural. I walked to the window. The whole street was dark, not just my building. A blackout. I wasn't surprised. The landlord had warned me that power cuts weren't rare here. But still, something about this one felt strange. I lit a candle, the flame flickering weakly against the walls. My own shadow stretched unnaturally long across the room, bending with the light, making me feel like someone else was standing there, watching. At first, I tried to ignore it. I made some tea on a small gas stove I kept for emergencies. I told myself this was normal, just a blackout. It would pass. But as I sat there in the dim glow, I heard something. A sound from the hallway. Footsteps, slow, careful, but not steady, almost dragging. I froze. My apartment was on the 3rd floor. Few people even lived in the building, and none of them had any reason to be outside my door at this hour. The steps grew louder, closer, and then silence. I stood there, clutching the candle, staring at the door. I waited for a knock, or the sound of a key. But nothing came. Minutes passed. I tried to calm myself. Maybe it was just another tenant. Maybe they were heading to their apartment. But deep inside, I knew those footsteps had stopped right outside my door. Around midnight, the candle burned low. I decided to try and sleep, though my body was tense with unease. Lying in bed, I stared at the ceiling, the room faintly illuminated by the dying flame. And then, I heard it again. Not footsteps this time. Whispers. They seemed to seep through the walls. Low, faint, impossible to make out. I pressed my ear to the wall, my heart pounding. The whispers stopped immediately. The silence felt heavier than before, like someone on the other side knew I was listening. The next morning, the power was still out. But when I walked into the kitchen, something was different. My window, the one I had locked, was slightly open. Just a crack, but enough. I live on the 3rd floor. No fire escape, no balcony. There was no way it should have been open. I shut it quickly, locking it tight. My hands were shaking. Was it possible I had forgotten to close it? Or had someone been here? I tried to shake it off. Told myself I was being paranoid. But all day I couldn't focus. I kept checking the corners of my apartment, kept listening for sounds. By evening, the power still hadn't returned. The blackout stretched on, and that's when things got worse. At around 9 p.m., I was reading by candlelight when I heard the sound again. Footsteps in the hallway. But this time, slower. Heavier, like someone dragging something along with them. I held my breath, waiting. The steps grew louder and then stopped. Right outside my door. I stood frozen, my heart hammered in my chest. And then I heard it. The sound of breathing, shallow, uneven, right outside. I grabbed the heaviest thing I could find, a wrench from my toolbox. My candle flickered wildly, as if reacting to the tension in the air. And then, just as suddenly as it had started. It stopped. The footsteps, the breathing, all of it. I rushed to the peephole, my eye pressed to the glass. The hallway was empty. That night, I barely slept. My body was exhausted, but my mind wouldn't let me rest. At around 3 a.m., I opened my eyes and saw something that made my blood run cold. The candle had gone out. The room was pitch black. But there, in the corner, I could swear I saw movement. A shadow, taller than me, standing, watching. I blinked. The darkness shifted. Was it real? Or was it just my imagination twisting the blackness into something else? I didn't move, didn't breathe. I just stared at that corner until a faint glow of dawn crept through the window. And by then, the shadow was gone. The following day, I decided to ask around about the blackout. I went downstairs to speak with the landlord, but when I asked him, his face went pale. "What do you mean, blackout?" he asked. "The power's been on the whole time." I froze. "No, it hasn't. My apartment's been dark for 2 nights now." He looked at me strangely. "Everyone else has had power. Maybe your breaker tripped, but I had checked the breaker twice. It wasn't that. Something was wrong." I went back upstairs, my hands trembling. I unlocked my door and stepped inside. And then I stopped cold. Every candle I had used was gone. Not melted, not burned down, gone. And on the wall, scrawled in something dark, were words. "Stay in the dark." The letters stretched across the wall, uneven and jagged. The smell of metal hit me again. That same faint metallic scent I had noticed the first night. Blood. My heart raced. I stumbled back, nearly dropping my keys. And then, my phone buzzed. A message. From an unknown number. It said only one thing. "Stop trying to leave.